What is going on, everybody? So we are in January. 2024 is kicking off, and I feel like January is always a really rough month for movies. We don't really get a whole lot of quality releases in the month of January. So normally I spend January getting caught up on movies from the previous year that I wanted to watch. And that's what I'm planning on doing this month and probably into February, is spending a lot of my time catching up on releases from 2023 that I did not get an opportunity to see. And this film I'm going to be discussing today, I was kind of mixed going into it. I was a big fan of the Hunger Games books when they were released. I read all three of them back to back to back, and I saw the original Hunger Games film on opening night, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a drastic departure from the book. There were a lot of changes. I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie, and then when Catching Fire was released, they did a lot better job adapting that novel into a film. I feel like they captured essence of that book. They did a really great job with the character building, and I've honestly never seen either one of the Mockingjay films. I'm not 100% sure why. So when this got announced, it was a prequel to the universe. It was something different, and maybe that's what sparked my interest, is just knowing that it was something different and new adding into this universe. And so I went into it with an open mind, and the film I'm going to be discussing today is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is directed by Francis Lawrence. 64 years before he became the tyrannical president of Panem, Coriolanus Snow sees a chance for change in fortunes when he mentors Lucy Gray Baird, the female tribute from District 12. So, as I said, I was a fan of the original books. I've never read this book. I didn't know what it was about going into it. I went into it with a fresh perspective, and I was looking forward to it, and it was fine. It's not really anything spectacular. I did really appreciate the elements that it added into the lore of the universe, which I could have also gotten from reading the novel, and I really liked those new additions. But I did find this film to be very bloated. Some of the performances are not the greatest, and I'll break that down a little bit more when I get into the review. At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Coriolanus Snow, played by Tom Blyth, who lives at home with his mother and I believe his cousin, Tigress Snow, played by Hunter Schafer. And we see a flashback to them when they're younger, running through the streets of Panem, and they're barely surviving. They have virtually no money. They live in the capital, which, if you're unfamiliar, the capital is the wealthy part of the community in the Hunger Games franchise, and outside of the capital are the districts, and the districts have multiple times tried to revolt against the capital, and the districts are controlled by the capital. There's soldiers there, and the Hunger Games are essentially the event where there are two children, a boy and a girl, picked from the districts, from all 12. They're thrown into an arena together, and they're forced to fight to the death, and whoever survives. And so at the beginning, we see Snow going to school. He's getting an education. He's trying to work his way up into the capital so that he can become one of the predominant figures there. And obviously we know, if you've seen the original trilogy, that he becomes the president at some point. So at the beginning, we see he has kind of a hard time fitting in. He's not close to a lot of the people. He seems to be the outcast. Tigress makes a comment at the beginning how much he reminds her of his father, and his father was not a good person from the sounds of it. He sounds like he was similar to what he would grow up to become. And so through a set of circumstances, he's working towards getting this like scholarship or this grant to be able to continue to get higher education, and it is dropped on them that that is no longer the case, and that in order to get that scholarship at this point, instead of just having the best grades, in order to receive that scholarship, you have to mentor one of the kids going into the Hunger Games and train them, and if they win, you're essentially going to be the one who receives the scholarship. And so he is paired up with Lucy Gray, played by Rachel Zegler, who is coming from District 12, which is the same district that Katniss Everdeen from the original Hunger Games is from. The two meet. She is very different than what he expects. She's very forthcoming. She's very independent and strong. She doesn't seem to be letting this get to her. She's just kind of understanding that this is the way it is, and she's going to try to power her way through it. And the two of them have this chemistry, and they start to bond, and he lets her know that he thinks he can help her survive. And so most of the film is the two of them training her to be ready for the Hunger Games. And then the second half is the aftermath of the Hunger Games and leading up to the knowledge that we know from the original Hunger Games trilogy. So as I said, I thought this movie was okay. I thought it started really strong. I was really impressed with the way that the movie took off, and I really enjoyed the new elements they were adding into the universe. And then at about the halfway point, it became a lot more of the same, and then it became an entirely different movie where they jumped to something completely different, where for Mockingjay, they split that into two films, and I feel like this honestly could have been two movies because of how drastically different the last act of the film is comparatively to everything we build up to. So first off, I'll talk about some of the positives. In the performance aspects, Rachel Zegler is the standout in this film. She was fantastic. She performs a lot of music in this, and I think she does a really great job. She has a really nice singing voice. She does great performing through facial expressions and bodily movements. I really enjoyed her performance. I thought she did a really excellent job. Hunter Schafer, while she was in the film, was fantastic. Hunter Schafer is one of my favorite current actresses. I really enjoy her a lot in Euphoria. She hasn't got to do a lot of mainstream cinema, and it seems like she's being signed to a lot of new projects, and I'm really excited for that because she is a super talented actress that deserves it. As far as my other positives, as I said, I really enjoyed the additions to the lore of this film. I really liked the different elements of where the games were at this early on and the way they had to change them. This was only the 10th Hunger Games, and at the beginning they're discussing how the citizens of Panem just don't care anymore. They don't even want to watch it. It's not a part of the society. And then there's this internal argument with all the leadership in Panem of, is this like a punishment? Why do we do this? What is this exactly accomplishing? And I think the moral questions that the film poses is really interesting. And obviously, the movie, for being PG-13, has some very violent moments, and these are kids being killed. So it does get really intense, and I like a lot of the fight sequences. I thought that the actors that played the kids in the arena all did a really fantastic job. As far as my negatives go, lead actor Tom Blyth was not very good. He felt like someone you would pull from like the CW or like the Disney Channel. He just, so much of his dialogue was forced. It was unimpressive. It was so just bland and nonchalant. It didn't really give a whole lot to that character to make me invested in whatever he was doing. Every time he was on screen, I really just didn't care. I thought his performance was really bland, and honestly, they could have done a lot better job casting him. Jason Schwartzman was in this film, and I love Jason Schwartzman. He is one of my favorite actors, and his performance in this was obnoxious. Every scene he was in, I realized that specific character is supposed to have a specific type of personality, and in the Hunger Games film, Stanley Tucci does a phenomenal job at playing that role. He has a lot of charisma. He's really entertaining. The jokes land really well. And Jason Schwartzman, every joke that he was supposed to have and all the humor that was supposed to come out of his character didn't work. It just all fell really flat. It was really irritating, and it just kept feeling like that they were trying so hard to make the material he was delivering land, and it just didn't in any way, shape, or form. My other issue with this film is the pacing is abysmal. At about the 45-minute mark, it just feels like more of the same. Like we're getting the same recycled scenes of these kids in the arena fighting one another, and there's just so much time waiting around, and it's really bland and boring, and it doesn't translate really well to screen. And then in the third act, it completely shifts to an entirely different story, and the motivations that they give Snow's character as to why he ends up becoming this horrible, evil dictator, they don't make a whole lot of sense. It's more just like a sins of the father scenario, like he's got to live up to who his dad was, and that's really it. There's nothing that kind of shifts his motivations throughout most of the film. You feel like he's going to go on the track to be a good person. He's seen all these horrors firsthand, and I don't know, I just felt like it was the laziest way out, and that's not necessarily the filmmaker's fault. They're following this book and what this book had written beforehand, which I've I've never read. But I just left kind of disappointed. The ending was so bad in comparison to everything that led up to it. And I feel like the first act of this movie was the strongest part of it. And like I said, there were some performances. I didn't even mention Viola Davis, who was absolutely incredible in this film as well. She did a really nice job. But there's not a whole lot really going on to make this worth revisiting. And honestly, I don't really see them continuing this story. There's not a lot to hold on to. I feel like they can set it in this universe and do something completely different. But I would say if you're a fan of the Hunger Games films, it's worth checking out. If you're not, it's fine if you want some kind of fantasy world, but it's really nothing all that special. So have you seen the Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was okay. I didn't think it was anything spectacular. I still enjoyed a lot of the runtime, but I feel like it could have been a lot better. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to putting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.